So Chelsea are world champions, but how did they do it? How did Enzo Maresca's tactical masterclass dominate Luis Enrique's impressive PSG side to such a dominant manner? We're going to look at some of those obvious things that have been picked up on so far and looking at how and why they work so well, but also maybe some subtle things, individual players and the way they were positioned at several key points in the game that are worth praising and just reflecting and savouring this incredible Chelsea performance, because why wouldn't we do that on this show? I do just want to quickly say before we jump into all of the tactics and reflecting on this performance, a massive thank you to all of you. I really want to say that we've picked up a load of new subs over the past month during the Club World Cup. And thank you for those new viewers, new subscribers, people engaging in the comments, really liking the Club World Cup content. I really want to say thank you for that. I'll probably do a playlist on the channel so you can go and check out all of the Club World Cup content, all the way starting with that squad announcement to the final, and of course this show right here where we're basically wrapping up the Club World Cup content. So I want to say a massive thank you. I'm not entirely sure if Chelsea will be in the next Club World Cup. I mean, logically you'd think they would be as champions, but maybe we'll be back here in 4 years to do it all over again. But I want to say again, thank you for your support on the show. So let's look at just like the numbers of the game from kind of an overview. Firstly, in terms of possession, this is really reflective and I think is summarised later on in this show where we're going to talk about why this works so well. Ball possession, Chelsea only had 34% to PSG 66%, and Chelsea, of course, in transition were absolutely exceptional. Didn't need a lot of the ball to be really effective. It slightly reminds me of the Liverpool victory in the Premier League a few months ago, which arguably was a massive turning point for Enzo Maresca's team, as others were. XG, Chelsea over 2 compared to PSG 0.53. Shots better. PSG had more shots on target. Chelsea had more big chances. Again, passing wise, PSG were dominant as expected. But if you watch the game, it shows you that possession stats really don't always reflect what's going on in an actual game, because it was a dominant Chelsea performance. They exploited PSG, and a lot of that possession was safe possession. It was possession inside PSG's half, not doing any harm to Chelsea whatsoever. Shape-wise, we've talked a lot about Chelsea's shape and how it's evolved, how it's changed, how it's been fixated and kind of at times been a little bit dull, but I think there's been a real fluidity and excitement to the way Maresca has adjusted in the Club World Cup. Now, I think it's fair to say that this was not a game where Maresca completely flipped the script and changed everything he's done before. It wasn't a complete reversal of everything. Instead, what it was, although there was one specific area of the pitch that Chelsea exploited in great effect and was definitely a departure from what we saw of Malo Gusto in the Premier League season for the most part. This was the 3-6-1, the 3 at the back, the 3-4-3, whatever you want to refer to it as, the fluid formation we have seen work effectively in the knockouts that has excited a lot of us. Really what this was taking it to another level against elite opposition and seeing how it would play out, and it obviously played out to extraordinary effect, and obviously Chelsea confidently winning the game. I guess first graph here, just laying it out. I mean, this was kind of, I guess, the most simplistic way of looking at it on the pitch. You've got Cucurella, Colwill and Chalobah as a back three. James and Caicedo as your kind of double six pivot. Then Malo Gusto as right wing back. Pedro Neto was definitely playing more as a left wing back. Fernandes and Palmer in as kind of new two kind of inside forward number 10 positions. And of course, João Pedro playing up top. But really, I mean, Maresca said, and it was one of the interesting things he said post-game, that he felt that Chelsea won this game, or at least proved to him they could win this game in the opening 10 minutes. And then when I went to watch the game this morning, rewatch it, I understand exactly why he says that. Because if you watch the first 10 minutes, it kind of foreshadows a lot of what's going to happen. A bit like in a lot of great Chelsea performances, or a lot of times you watch a football game, if a team's setting out their stall, you can sometimes see how things may play out later in the game to greater effect. You know, if you watch the opening exchanges of the Champions League final in 2021, you know, Chelsea had already shown an ability to get beyond Man City, to create good looks at goal, and obviously that led all the way to the winning goal towards half time. It took a little bit longer for Chelsea to score, but Chelsea were pressing from the off. They're pressing really with a front two. That's something that I really picked up, just not even rewatching the game, watching the game, how Chelsea, it was more the case that Enzo Fernandes was really pressing from the front. I mean, it felt like he had real license. There would be fluid interchange. Sanchez as well hits the ball very early on out to the right flank of Chelsea, left side of PSG's defence, where Nuno Mendes is, and he finds Cole Palmer brilliantly, pressing high, even forcing Donnarumma to go long. That was something that Chelsea did very effectively on a consistent basis. And Chelsea's high line, very confident with that high line. Chelsea would drop off during the game, but especially early on, really trying to suffocate PSG, effectively do what they do to other teams so brilliantly well. And if you just look at some of these screenshots here, the shape and possession early on, where again you can see Chelsea very confident in here and trying to occupy PSG's two centre-backs with two attackers. Got here Malo Gusto, who was always playing that right wing kind of role, right wing back, right wing role. He had such license to play a role that is far more suited to him as a footballer. I mean, that's one of the things I will give credit to Maresca, because I think part of my frustration earlier in his time at Chelsea was it felt like misprofiling players, and Maresca's not guilty of it. I mean, Tuchel could be accused of doing it, Graham Potter, Pochettino could be, a lot of coaches get accused of doing it, and it's frustrating because you see players at their best and you want to simplify the game a bit more. And Malo Gusto is an overlapping fullback. He is much more of a traditional fullback than an inverted one. Cucurella plays that role brilliantly. It's much more suited and tailored to his game. Gusto, as we saw in this game, the mobility, the speed, the aggression he has as a marauding fullback, wingback to get forward, how effective it was and how troublesome it was, in combination with the movement of Cole Palmer, with the movement of João Pedro, who would drift onto that right. Nuno Mendes didn't know how to cope with it, but you see how brave and confident Chelsea were, where they were willing to add another centre forward there, to add someone else to try and, as I say, unsettle PSG. The first goal, of course, is this move that we saw early on, where Rob Sanchez is punting the ball long out to that right flank, and Malo Gusto is already there. I mean, Chelsea had a bit of possession and Palmer had to retreat, and the ball eventually finds its way back to Sanchez, but Gusto is not retreating. He's staying in that position. Kvaratskhelia is not retreating either. So there was always this space and kind of license for Chelsea and for Gusto to keep moving forward. Physically, Gusto wins the battle and then eventually lays it back to Cole Palmer in this number 10 position. In some ways, the first two goals of this game, the Palmer double, you look at the positioning he's in and you think about where he was positioned for the opening Palmeiras goal. That position that Palmer is so devastating at, it's that kind of middle ground between, a number 10, a centre forward, drifting into those pockets that are so devastating. More so coming from the right in this game. That was also the case against Palmeiras. We've seen him shift to the left in this tournament against Benfica, but it's in that pocket where he's so devastating, and where Maresca said after the game, we'd found an ability to get Cole on the ball consistently, and it really was exploiting down that left, and PSG getting a little bit narrow, not quite knowing what to do, because then you've got João Pedro moving forward, you've got Enzo Fernandez who's really getting himself into the box, and as a defender, I keep on saying this, it's posing questions to your opposition. They have to then think, how do we counteract those questions? Do you maybe go for Cole Palmer and try and close him down, close that space down, but then you're maybe leaving space for someone else. You're leaving space for Enzo Fernandez, you're leaving space for João Pedro, and that became a real nightmare for PSG, because their attacking players, unlike Chelsea, were not retreating, were not tracking back effectively, and that allowed Chelsea a lot of freedom in these opportunities to hit PSG on the break. And of course, it was an exceptional finish by Cole Palmer. The second goal, though, I want to point out this. It was more the role of Levi Colwill. And watching the game, it was not just Colwill, it was Chalobah. And you would see both of them at times step up. It's not, freakish to see centre-backs in a back three have the licence more so than in a back two to follow their man, to move out of that back three shape. And you would see Reece James a lot of the time, how fluid it was, how easily he would then move into the space that had just been vacated by either Levi or Trev. I think you'd see Trev very aggressive against Kvaratskhelia and not allowing him much time on the ball when he got into Chelsea's half. Same here with Fabian Ruiz and Levi Colwill. Levi Colwill very much going out, tracking Fabian Ruiz, making sure he doesn't get any time to turn, to look, to try and find a pass, to try and get in behind Chelsea's defence. But He stays in his position. He doesn't move back to his natural kind of centre-back role here. And the ball eventually finds its way to him after a Reece James block. And here Levi has the ball. And you got Pedro Neto on the left charging forward into that space. That would have been a fine ball to play. But instead, Levi thinks about it and curls a ball over the top of PSG's defence for Palmer to run onto. And of course, this really is the magic of Cole Palmer. He dummies, he waits, and then curls the ball into the bottom corner. I also think with this second goal, really good decoy run, I believe, from Joao Pedro, that, Vitinha here doesn't really know what to do. Does he go with Joao Pedro? Because there was a moment where you thought maybe Cole Palmer's going to lay this ball off to Joao Pedro, but instead it opens up that space. And again, Palmer devastating. The third goal is kind of a culmination, all the nightmares that Chelsea had given Nuno Mendes by this point, because there's a lack of tracking back again by Kvaratskhelia. It gives Gusto that room to keep running, and Mendes has to track him, and he doesn't really know what to do. He's absolutely furious that Kvaratskhelia is not tracking back, because then you're left in a nightmare situation again, asking those questions. What does Mendes do? Does he try and close down Cole Palmer? But then it becomes a very easy ball for Palmer to lay it out to Gusto, and that creates more problem, a crossing opportunity for Chelsea potentially, as it was in the opening goal. Doesn't know what to do, doesn't kind of do either, and you've got the PSG backline retreating, and eventually Palmer has the ball in an amazing position, timed that pass perfectly, and there is Joao Pedro, who of course does incredibly well to trip Gianluigi Donnarumma, and that is 3-0, and that is game over. Here are some of the quotes from Enzo Maresca. He said, "We used Cole and Malo to create an overload in that area. It was just a game plan, and we tried to get the players in positions where they can do everything. It worked quite well." It absolutely did. The Athletic pointing out in this graph here, this data graph, if you're listening on the podcast feed, it explains that sort of the match ranking, heat map wise as well, for Cole Palmer, and where he was picking up the ball, where he was being so devastating in this game. And it shows very heavily weighted as expected on the right side. In terms of overall match rank, he comes first for total progressive carries, third for progressive passes, third for total carries in the game. Just an outstanding performance. I want to point out John McKenzie here, because he made an analysis of the game, and hopefully we're going to have John on the show very soon, because I want to speak to him from a tactical point of view about Chelsea and Maresca's development as a Chelsea head coach and where it could be going in the second season. So hit the like button if you're excited for that, because I know many people, as myself, respect the work of John McKenzie. And this was his little thread about the game. It said, "It's been a fun game out of possession. Both teams happy to leave their backlines 1v1 in high pressing phases, but Chelsea been better both at being more selective and dropping off in certain moments, and have exploited PSG's 1v1s much more readily. Joao Pedro is a real asset in terms of Chelsea's high press, offers them a lot of advantages that their other forwards don't have. And lastly," he says here, "also worth saying this matchup suits Chelsea. They've almost always looked better under Maresca in games where they can play more directly, and they're not going to have many games in the Premier League next season where they only get 30% possession." I think that last point is a fair one. However, what I would say about this 3-6-1 shape and how it can evolve and how it works differently against different types of opponents. I mean, you think back to that Benfica game, the first half of that Benfica game, and arguably even the first half of the Palmeiras game, two sides who did not have a lot of the ball. It was a very different type of game. Chelsea did not gift their opponents a lot of the ball, and it wasn't a case of Chelsea just consistently hitting their opponent on transition when they would give up the ball, and Chelsea were kind of running into space. It was a case of two defences there, Benfica and Palmeiras, who were sitting deep. And I felt in both of those first halves, of course, more effectively against Palmeiras because we scored, and Palmer had an incredible influence in that game, that Chelsea were able to open up space. I think the difference was against Benfica, Cucurella was definitely playing far more advanced than he was in other games. He was playing far much more as a wing back, and that was obviously opening up space for Chelsea. But I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. I do ponder if this is a bit of a combination of things. Chelsea either in a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, or in this new system, Chelsea are able to do that because they have the tools to exploit teams in transition, and they don't get to do it that often. So whether it's a 4 or a 3 at the back, Chelsea they have the tools, the skill set of the players to be effective, whatever the circumstance in that sense. But also, I wonder if that in the long term for Maresca is trying to find ways round the low block problem that Chelsea have had for a long period of time. And they're going to keep having, there's going to be no room for kind of maneuver here. Chelsea will have to face teams who come to Stamford Bridge and even away from home who sit deep. And then it's about how Chelsea find their way around that. Is the new players they brought in and the tweak in the system inject more variety into Chelsea's play? I think that's a big question for you. Are you confident that Chelsea can maybe get around that? Are you looking at this team and their confidence too, and the results that give them that more confidence? I mean, even against a low block that can be frustrating, if you're a team psychologically that has been through a lot of pressure and has got over the line, you maybe back yourself to do more audacious things. You back yourself and have more confidence if things aren't working out. It can work out under this coach. Our methods can work out in the long term. And I think that's going to be an intriguing thing, how big of a confidence boost the last few months, but especially this Club World Cup win, is going to have on Chelsea's players. So yes, tactically, it's going to be a very different game. You can't expect, Chelsea to have the space in transition and that kind of game state against PSG as they would when they come up against Crystal Palace, against Burnley, against teams, of course, with lesser quality who we always know will come to Stamford Bridge and play that style of game. Chelsea have to overcome that. All top teams have to overcome that. But I do think the way Maresca has used this tournament as kind of, yes, making Chelsea successful, making Chelsea competitive, but also maybe hints at what the new Chelsea heading into 25-26 is going to look like from a tactical point of view. This was an incredible tactical performance by Enzo Maresca. I mean, the way we targeted Mendes on that left side and the conviction and the extent to which we went for him over and over and over again, it does remind me of kind of like a Jose Mourinho style execution of a tactical weakness that you find out. And from a tactical discipline and off the ball too, Chelsea were just perfect. I mean, I think CFC Central, I'll put the tweet up on screen now, it took about over 80 minutes, I think it was, for PSG to even get across into the box, which speaks volumes, especially about the work defensively of both Marc Cucurella and especially Gusto in that second half to block so many crosses as well. Just exemplary. And obviously Rob Sanchez had an amazing game. Trev Chalobah, Levi Colwill, I thought were outstanding as well throughout the game, have been outstanding for a period of time now. And everyone else, I mean, Reece James, it's been pointed out that maybe Reece James was better in this game from a central midfield point of view because he was asked to do less. He wasn't asked to cover as much space. It was kind of more simplified. I mean, maybe that is something that we can pick up on in the long term if Reece is used in this position again. But no two ways about it. Chelsea destroyed, dismantled, absolutely battered PSG. And it's credit to Enzo Maresca, the way he's developed this team and for what could still come as we move into the new season. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours in the comments below. Check out my Substack. My post-match piece about Chelsea becoming world champions once again will be in the description box below to go and check that out. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on the podcast, share around with friends, follow me across socials at SonOfChelsea. Have a great rest of your day and I'll see you again very, very soon. All the best.